want to know what the joke was.
Right.
Well, welcome everybody. We're again on Fridays at 10 o'clock, and we have friends with us outside. It's great. And we get a challenge to our focus. and welcome. This is a group that I think is close now to a 9-year anniversary. 9 years ago today, I moved full-time to Costa Rica with 4 suitcases. And I came to this group soon after I moved. So sometime this fall, I wonder if this is a 9-year anniversary of the group. Yeah, pull up the date so we might be able to celebrate that. We've been we're on the second part of a series about the Brahmavaharas, which are some of the most basic teaching besides the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path that Buddhism talks about. And it's last week was about loving kindness. Today Mark is leading us with compassion. Next week is me on sympathetic joy. And then I think we have Orme scheduled for equanimity. Orme will be back and for equanimity in a couple of weeks. Then the next week, I think we do again the sharing time, where you come and you talk about what the Dharma, something about the Dharma and how it's influenced you or affected your life. So we've got about 3 weeks planned for now. Take it away, Mark.
Take it away, Lisa.
Meditation. Alright, as per usual, let's just get ourselves in a comfortable seated position with your spine erect but not rigid. Tuck your chin back a little bit, that helps align the spine. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable, or just gaze with about 3 feet in front of you. And take some deep breaths and sigh them out, letting go of any tensions and agitation from arriving.
So I had lunch, or a snack anyway, with Ivan and Jeff yesterday. And as we were leaving, Jeff said, "Oh, you're giving a talk on compassion. I look forward to that." And Ivan said the same thing, to which I said, "So am I. I don't know what I'm going to say yet. I'm looking forward to hearing what's going to happen." And it's not because I didn't know fully. It's because I wasn't completely, it hadn't gelled, or it had a gel, but it hadn't formed quite yet. And part of the reason is any time that I have an opportunity to do a talk or something, I usually choose something that I don't know very well. And the reason I do that is so that I can get to know it better. So if I can find a way to express it that makes sense to you, then that must mean I've developed a pretty good relationship with it. I'd rather talk about something that I don't know than rather something that I do know. And this is the perfect place for that. And so here we go. So we know the four Brahmavaharas. We have loving kindness, sympathetic joy, equanimity, and compassion. And I've got them in a little Venn diagram just over my head here on the top. And I'm going to come to that in a few moments. But first, let's talk about the bowls. I chose 3 bowls, not 4 bowls today. And the reason I did that is they weren't being played in any particular order. I wasn't trying to make something happen. I was just playing the bowls. And what ends up happening is there's a point where all of the bowls intersect in sound. And what it is whatever is common with this bowl and this bowl and this bowl, that meets, that becomes just where they're different, that softens and falls back away. And we're going to find the same thing about compassion in relationship to the 4 Brahmavaharas, the 4 abodes, divine abodes. So what am I really talking about? Well, compassion makes sense to us. I mean, if I ask any one of you to define it, you would probably give me a very good answer, and we would all nod knowingly that we understand what it is. But really, what is it? What is compassion? What is it for you? And what does it mean when you engage with it? For me, compassion, if I read online or I go to any number of books, it's basically about being available for somebody who is suffering in some way. And of course, in our Buddhist teachings, we're always looking at alleviating suffering, reducing suffering, and being there. Notice that compassion is about being there for somebody, but it's not saying whether something is right or wrong. It's not about, oh, that's awful, or, oh, you're wrong. It's about being available and present for somebody. And so this is where the 3 bowls and the little drawing will start to make sense. Having compassion is not easy. And in order to have compassion, we need, let me rephrase need. We're often encouraged to find something within inside of ourselves. If I push compassion, it's going to seem like I'm not sincere or I'm not connected. So how do we find that compassion? Well, we look at the other 3. So right up on the board above me, you'll notice that I've drawn 4 circles, and I drew them specifically where equanimity and where loving kindness meet. Where those 2 overlap, we have a truth. We understand equanimity. This is a balance for everything to be, anything that I share is equanimous for me as it is for somebody else. And loving kindness is having that love, that respect for everybody. But it creates 2 other circles. When those 2 circles meet, one it creates is sympathetic joy. I see somebody who is ecstatic about somebody just won a race or got a gold medal or passed a class or did something really, had a child or something. I immediately engage in loving kindness and equanimity. I trust that whatever's going well for them I'm going to feel and reciprocate in kind. But it also creates that 4th one, which is compassion. Here, compassion gets a little bit more interesting because in order to have compassion, I need to be centered. Equanimity helps in that. I need to be in a love place. Loving kindness helps in that. But I also need to have compassion for myself. Because of all the things, of all the four in there, compassion is going to be the one that's going to test me. Because if I'm not available to be compassionate for any reason, Jeff gave a beautiful example last week about being in the kitchen with his ex-wife, and he lasted 7 minutes, and then he happily departed from it. He ran out of compassion for the moment, which is not a fault of his. It's completely amazing that he lasted 7 minutes, as he pointed out. But what is compassion? Why is it important? So when I was talking with Ruthie, I read something to her, and she said, in her very Ruthie way, "Oh, you've got to read that. You've got to read that." And it's like, I'm not going to read that. She goes, no, read it. And, okay. So I'm going to read you what I read to her, and it's a prayer. And let's see if we can find out where she was going with when she felt that compassion was important. And it goes like this: all that I love, I am courageous and willing to explore any truth that defines me, every flaw and every moment of excellence, because this shows me who I truly am. I am every truth I have ever known, and I am now safe to express them, for I am the love that loves me. Amen. Sure.
Well, what about the whole thing?
Okay. Louder?
A little louder.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Okay.
Just start making it very
From the top. All that I love, I am courageous and willing to explore any truth that defines me, every flaw and moment of excellence that shows me who I really am. For I am every truth I have ever known, and I am now safe to express them, for I feel your love in everything. Amen.
Got the I am the love that loves me.
Yeah, there was a difference. It was a difference the first time.
He was ad-libbing.
Dyslexia.
That's what I was thinking. I think that's what.
Yeah, welcome to my life.
They were both versions were lovely.
We have compassion for you.
Thank you. So really, what was the prayer about? The prayer is about being in a state of loving kindness, not just for a situation, but for myself in this particular case, if I were reading it properly. If I were reading it, it's about being in a state where there's equality or equanimity. I am not trying to do something, nor am I pulling to take anything. I'm in a state of loving kindness for myself and my realization of it. And in so doing, I have compassion for me. And if I am in that state with somebody else, then I have that compassion for them as well. And invariably, if those three things exist, at some point they're going to have a moment where they're going to have a realization, and then I'm going to experience sympathetic joy. So the point here is all four of these work together. They're intertwined. And because they're intertwined, sometimes it's a little bit harder to figure out one from the other. Except when we do not have compassion. Then we can go back to the other three. Sympathetic joy, that's of course something that occurs, but what we can really look at is if I am not compassionate in this moment for whatever reason, I don't need to go looking for why. I know it's one of two things. I am not fully available in loving kindness, or I'm not balanced in the particular moment. Something is tugging on me, something is pulling on me, something is telling me that something is wrong with me. Not with the person, with me. Because I'm no longer able to stay in a balanced, equal, loving place. Well, chances are whatever's being shared is something that person is saying, doing, or reflecting that is similar to something that I have experienced, and maybe I haven't made peace with it yet. I see them struggling, and they're asking me for guidance, and I'm like, I got nothing here. I'm struggling with it too. But this is where compassion steps up again, and it comes back in. Because if they're suffering and I can feel their suffering, because I'm suffering, then I can have compassion for what they're going through. I can be with them in that particular moment. And rather than needing to guide them or direct them, I can say, I can now stand beside you. I don't know what's right or wrong. Remember at the beginning I said, compassion isn't concerned about what's right or wrong. It's about being present for somebody. And then in that moment, being able to say, I am here with you. I feel just as exposed, not vulnerable, just as exposed as you are in this particular moment. It's important. That's what compassion is. It's the ability to be present when somebody is suffering, going through something. Not to say they're right or wrong, not to say I'm right or wrong, but to say I'm here with you. And in order to do that, it will foster that loving kindness. It'll add spark to that flame. It'll also add the spark to the equanimity, because I now realize that this person, like me, is struggling with something, which means that it's not just me, and it's not just them. It's something. And so I can find an equality in that. I can find an equanimous way of being in that particular moment.
Mark,
Please.
Can I have known two types of people that I think you're talking about, or two types of circumstances and the way people respond to them. When someone is suffering, either you come close or you pull away. And what I'm hearing you talk about is, if you have the ability to come close and have real compassion that you express to them, it will be because you have compassion for yourself as well as for their circumstance. There's like a two-sided thing going on. People who don't have the ability, who are afraid of suffering, want to avoid it, want to deny it, those kind of people actually are not in touch with either of those two blades that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Does that sound
Absolutely.
accurate? And so the challenge is to be compassionate toward ourselves and compassionate for others. I want to give an example that I was thinking when you were talking. I used to work in a church in Minnesota when I was really young. And when the pastor would go on vacation, they would want me to go visit people in the hospital, because that was what the pastor did. I didn't want to go. I don't like hospitals. I don't like illness. I don't like sick people. I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, there were so many things, and I went out of duty. I said that I would do this, so I did it. And I think it went well when I had compassion for that I didn't like to do this, that I was being challenged, as well as compassion for the person. Then it could flow out of me. Mm-hmm. And I did do it out of duty, but I did end up, when I got in that spot where I realized my struggle. See, I grew up, when you were sick, they put you in a room, closed the door, and said, come out when you're well. And so, like, everybody didn't want to be with you when you were sick. And so that's how I was kind of trained in suffering. Like, just go away and suffer on your own. But compassion is not that. It's not to go solo away and suffer. It's to include that in your forward movement. I don't know if that fits with what you're saying.
Well, in fact, I was just about to say.
Oh, okay. I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, your segue is perfect. Is that when we confront ourselves, there's a few things that we confront when we're having trouble with compassion. And one of the ones is a personal bias. I just can't get beyond can't give you compassion because I have a bias to whatever you're experiencing. The other would be a prejudice of some kind. I am unable to do that because I don't agree or believe in anything that you represent or etc. And then the third one would be self-centeredness. It's not about you, it's about me. You should rejoice when I'm in your presence, that kind of thing. These are the things that take us out of compassion, and if we're experiencing any of them, that's when we need to pull back and say, you know what, maybe I need more loving kindness, or maybe I am unable to establish a balance here right now. Another thing that came up was a phrase or a short paragraph from Sister Stanislaus Kennedy, and she writes Flowers in the Garden. She's an Irish nun, not a monk, a nun. And again, consider compassion as I read this to you. Acknowledging our own weakness is an essential quality for those of us who work to provide a service to people who have been hurt or rejected. In situations where we're unable to be welcoming because we're just too tired or busy, it is better that we acknowledge and accept that. People who have been repeatedly rejected see very clearly if there's a gap between what we say and what we do, between our ideals and our reality. And if they sense our hypocrisy, they'll feel rejected and devalued once again. And so, for your point that you brought up, you had to find one of these two things. You had to find that loving kindness. You had to find some sort of balance inside of yourself, because you knew what you were doing was the right thing, and you had to move beyond that. So I would say that you move beyond all of those things, that the bias, the prejudice, and the self-centeredness, to be able to do that. But if there comes a time where we're just not able to be compassionate, we have to be compassionate with ourselves and say, I'm not available. I'm sorry. I just can't be there for you right now. Because if we don't, anything that we say or do is going to feel disingenuous. It's not going to feel like we're really engaged, which is the very thing that compassion is. Again, it's not saying what's right or wrong. It's saying, I'm here beside you. Or we say, I see you're struggling. I see you're having a problem with this. I don't have a full tank. I'm not fully resourceful here, but I'm not going to leave you alone either. I'll sit here beside you in silence if need be. That's compassion. And I think that's what Jeff was doing when he went to the hospital. He went into somewhere where he didn't feel comfortable, and he said, I am not good at this. I don't want to be here and everything else, but I realize the importance of it is for me to sit here beside you while you're sitting or lying in the bed. That's compassion. But it's also compassion for himself, because he took the time to establish who he was. Remember that prayer is, I'm confronting all truths, known and unknown, real or unimagined, about myself. I'm going to be honest, and I feel safe to express them. I'm not available right now, but I will sit beside you. I will be here. Which brings me back to that point that I said earlier. Compassion is not convenient. Not convenient. Why? Because invariably when we're in our truest form of compassion, it's when somebody needs something. It doesn't show up when we feel great and everything's wonderful. You know, I feel amazing. I need to go and rescue somebody. Usually it's a phone call, an email, a knock on the door, or something where somebody says, help. And you're like, wow, I got a cake in the oven. I'm doing something right now. And this is where loving kindness and equanimity come into play. How much can I be available to be compassionate in this moment? Can I invite you into my home, be it the physical or spiritual home? Can I invite you into my home? And can I be present for you while I am attending to the things that I am attending to in my life? So when I'm talking about compassion, and I'm talking about these drawings and these bowls and everything, what really is, compassion is like the return on investment for our spiritual practice. We invest our time in understanding love and kindness. We invest our time into understanding equanimity. We devote our time into sympathetic joy. And all of those things build up this third thing, that tone that I was telling about, the three bowls, creates this other part, which is compassion. And the more I practice these three, the more compassionate and resourceful I am to sit beside somebody and say, I'm here. I'm here right now. I'm not going anywhere. Until such a time we become tired and we need to work on those three things, and then we have that ability to speak the truth and say, I'm not available right now. I'm losing my compassion. I need to look after me now. I haven't forgotten you. I will come back, but I need to attend to myself right now because the compassion is important for us as well. So how do we know we're not compassionate? Usually because we don't feel the strength in one of those three. I'm not able, like, oh, I just won. It's like, oh, yay, you won, great, good for you. Or you know, I'm thinking more about myself than the other person. There isn't a balance. And I certainly don't have loving kindness. Oh, yay, great for you. I know I'm missing in compassion at that point, which means if it was a financial world, I would reinvest or I would fortify or strengthen one particular area as weaker so that I could maintain this return on investment. Well, in spiritual wealth, we're doing the exact same thing. We're returning back to those, investing in those areas that will pay a dividend or a return on our efforts, which we call compassion. And that compassion is our ability to share as well. So, for me, one of the things that I learned about reading about compassion, as I say, I know the word, and as many of you know, I've devoted many years to being available for people. But for me, it was developing compassion for myself. To be able to say, no, I'm not available right now. No, I don't have money to put gas in the car to drive 6 hours to come and see you. Because when I spoke that, something would appear. Somebody would walk up with $100 and go, I'm supposed to give you $100, I don't know why. Great, now I have gas in the car. Or the person would say, I need you, I'll send you some money. But I had to have compassion for myself. I had to know that I, help me with the fallible? Thank you. So the words were getting jumbled in my head, thank you. I had to know that I needed help too in order to be of service. And compassion helped me to develop that. So that's my feeling on compassion today and what I've sort of explored and even though I probably wrote this 4 or 5 times in the way that I was conveying, I didn't follow any pattern. I just, you know, what it was called to be said will be said. But what I'd like to do now, as we often do, is I'd like to open the floor up and hear what you have to say and take it from there.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Comments, questions, thoughts?
I'll go. I know I was super happy to hear you say about not having the answer. It has nothing to do with compassion. No, I don't need the answers. Just being with, right? This whole, in fact, sometimes the answers are a pain in the ass. You tell somebody you have a problem, they start coming up with solutions for you, and they'll go through the top 50 solutions, which clearly you've already thought of because it's your problem. You've been working on it, so whatever comes off the top of their head is probably not going to be that helpful. But having someone sit with you, just sit with you, tell the story, the burden is halved by being shared. And that is the gift right there. Just be with me while I work it out. And I noticed I'm a lot better if I only give advice after I hear these words. What do you think, Hannah? Those are my cue to weigh in.
Yeah.
Anything else? Shut the fuck up. Right? Please.
I remember having that conversation with my husband early on, like 2 years of marriage.
It's true.
You go, you listen. Oh my God, your boss is an ass. You know, they just much back at you. And men sometimes will have like, well, you could say this to him.
Oh, God.
And it's like, I don't
Well, then I can't help you.
Stop. Just like, all I want right now is for you to listen. You know, and lovely guy. But I think sometimes you don't know. You think that what your job is to be compassionate is to fix. It's not.
Yeah, and I was gonna say to that point, when my mother, before she passed away, she would like call Lane, and John and I would go over and we'd say, well, here's the answer, and you've got to do this, and you've got to do that. And now in retrospect, I realize how I should have just sat next to her. And I learned my lesson the hard way.
I'm a man. I learn it all the time. Well, one of the things that I have learned about compassion, or that the both of you are mentioning, is that the fact that you show up and that you're present, you actually create an energetic field. And what that energetic field does is it offers an opportunity for unconventional thought. And what do I mean by unconventional thought? As you pointed out, you've already thought this 50 times over. Anything I'm going to suggest, you've already thought about. And when you do it, the person goes, oh yeah, I thought of that. But your presence and the presence of the other person in that field have the opportunity to come up with something that has not been considered before. And I don't know what it is, but I believe that you do. And so by talking it through and talking it through and talking it through, they finally go, oh, you know, I guess I could do this. And you hear that moment of truth, you hear that spark, and all of a sudden you're present for it. And your body reaction is immediately back to sympathetic joy, where you lift up and you smile and you go, oh. And the person goes, yeah, that seems like a good idea. And now that unconventional thought has become a path that leads them out of that suffering. However long, we don't know, but at least it's a directional place to go to, which I find.
I have a friend right now that needs help pretty seriously. And I love this person. And he loves me. I've helped him in many ways. I've helped him food, to love. Needs alcohol. And he goes in and out of this problem. And right now he's not in a good spot. And you know, I make sure there's enough food, this kind of thing. But what he needs is for someone to sit beside him.
He needs for.
Someone to go sit beside him. But I know he doesn't want me to, because he's proud and he's embarrassed and he loves me so much that he doesn't want to see my face. So what do I need to work on? I'm worried he won't tell me. I'm scared. I'm shy. So what do I need to work on in order to go and help this man? Not that we need to get there.
I think you know the answer.
I don't know.
Take a look at the 4 circles that are above me there. And just
Courage. I need courage.
absolutely, but where do you think that courage will come from out of those 4 circles? There's sympathetic joy, probably not that one. Loving kindness, yeah, possibly. Equanimity, okay. And compassion. Compassion. Well, what's compassion? It's all 3 of those things. It's the ability to sit there and realize that this person is struggling and is losing face by admitting their troubles, or where they're suffering in front of you, and for you to maintain a state of balance, of equanimity, not being swayed one way or the other, and let that person speak without
I'm just
correcting.
scared to go over though.
Well, then, this fits beautiful with Mark's talk, that the first compassion is for you, and for the dilemma that you are in, that you have to give energy to that, to that dilemma that you're in. When you do that, and get yourself to a calm spot about it. You will know when it's time.
We come with you.
I could think about that, or somebody who really understands sobriety and addiction. Any of those people.
I don't, I'm not the kind of person that would tell them what to do or what to think.
That's not what you're
Yeah.
being asked to do.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I would just like to go over, and that's what I do. I hug them.
Good, great.
Sorry, just
I didn't understand that, but I'll come to you.
Huh? You asked the wrong person.
sorry, you had a question.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
well, I have many questions, but
Yeah. You wanted to add something to that, I think.
Yeah. Your story touches me very deeply because this was part of my life. So the person was my dad, who became an alcoholic not because he just liked to drink. My mom was suffering for 10 years and died slowly 10 years. And when she was dead, he fell in this big hole and then he started drinking. And for the first 2 years I was there with everything. Every day doing what you do. Going there, hugging him, doing the laundry, bringing food, bringing this, listen there. And I had a full-time job, a big house, 3 kids, my own family. And one day, my own, what I learned just today is so powerful. I had nothing more to give. And I never went to this professional people who tell you what to do. But I went, and here opens this charming young man. I never forget it, I was all these grumpy old ladies who tell you what to do. You come in, oh, what is your problem? And I'm crying, and I said, oh, my dad, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, and what is your problem? And I'm thinking he is joking with me. And he said, okay, we can have this session very short. You don't have a problem. Because you did everything what you could do. And now you look at yourself. You work on your backpack, and your dad has his own backpack to sort out. And I said, I cannot do it. It's my dad. He said, well, this is my advice. I went home, made a very, very hard decision. I went there and said, Dad, this is the last time you see me. I will send you good energy. I do, all this what I can do from far away. But now I have to work on my own life. And people judge me because we lived in one city, small city. And he looked like hell, and he stumbled drunk, and everybody knew my dad. This was the other thing. And I had to live with it, but I did. I gained strength, and that is not my backpack. It's not my backpack. My backpack is actually good. So now comes the end of the story. After I let him be for 6 months, we didn't talk, but every day I was thinking about him. He called me and said, I think I'm ready to talk in a different way. Maybe we find it, because what you do when you love somebody, right? And I said, okay, then I can come back and we can talk what your idea is to get out of this misery, and then I can help you. Before, I did everything for you. And now comes my point, when this point is reached, it's so hard to fill your own goal again. It's so much work, and worked so hard on me. And I learned the biggest lesson. And Jeff's story was sitting for me with his birthday party for 1 week. And I came here today to ask what I should do after the 7.5 minutes. I shared this story with many people. And today I ask, and you give me the answer. You do nothing. You go away. Because your bowl is empty in the moment, and you love yourself. And thank you for your story. Again, it's reminded me, and for your story too. And your talk today touched me really deeply. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, one of the things that we're talking about, and you brought that up, my daughter I adore, absolutely. But one day she was asking for something, and I said to her, I think you're missing my point as your father. And she was like, okay. And I said, my job is to love you unconditionally and just feel your amazing qualities and support you in those qualities. I want to enable you to be the most incredible person you can be. But if I answer that question, I become an enabler, which is the very different thing that I want to be. I want to support you where you are going to flourish. And if I'm just compensating for what you're dealing with right now, I'm not helping. So I'm unable to step in at this time. I love her that much.
Here's your answer. It's always the hardest one.
Was that hard to do, Mark?
Yeah. Initially, the concept was hard to do, but again, when I was talking about the truths of who I am, where areas that are in development, and those things that are shiny and bright, this actually became a shiny and bright thing, because what it was is I knew it was true. I knew it was accurate, and it felt good inside of me to speak the truth. And because I was able to do it, I was able to do it with a heart full of compassion and loving kindness. I adore you, daughter. I think you're the most amazing thing in the world, and I want what's best for you. And if I do this, that's contrary to what I believe.
It's really having the strength to leave it alone,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
which in many cases is much harder
Yeah.
than trying to find the answers for somebody.
Yeah.
Because we all, when we love people so deeply in our lives, we always want the best for them. And being hands-on and trying to, like, what was the word I'm looking for? To give guidance and to give advice, and when you are maybe with somebody who has an addiction, whether it be alcohol or whether it be some other substance, it would be very hard to leave that person alone and say, I've reached the point where I can't help you anymore. I love you unconditionally, and I love you so much that I actually have to let you go. And I have to let you go because maybe what I'm doing
It's
is
not helping.
enabling what you're doing.
It's getting in the way of your solution.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things that you notice in this drawing is I've colored in, put green lines in one particular area where all four circles overlap. And the reason I've done that is I want to bring your awareness to this one particular part. And where those four circles overlap is love. Because if you feel love, it connects with every single circle in an incredible way. Of course, loving kindness, sympathetic joy. Of course, equanimity. I love you so much that I can see the value in you, and I know you have the capability of moving beyond this thing that you're struggling. I'm just going to sit here and be beside you. And of course, the sympathetic joy when they come to the realization that they're empowered and capable of doing it themselves. But love is the common denominator in all four of those four modes.
The beautiful thing about the loving kindness meditation is that you can let go and you can still include them in your loving kindness meditation. And that you can wish these things for them, and that they would find the things that you offer in loving kindness. And so that does not mean that you are even involved with them beyond that. But that prepares a road for them to, the energy for them to find it themselves, and whether they then include you or not. So there's always, when we let go, the loving kindness part of this is always that we can still be involved. We can detach and still be involved, which we've talked about so many times. Loving kindness meditation allows for that, which is a lovely piece of it. Any anybody else on compassion? Good topic, Mark.
I'm quite sure. No, the most compassionate phrase that's ever been said to me is, "Yeah, sometimes it's like that." Yeah, sometimes it's like that. The person has shown that they're with you. They made no judgment about the problem or you. The universality of bullshit is brought into it. There's no time frame when it's going to pass. You're not in trouble for feeling that way. It's just like such a little phrase.
It's
You
good.
made a country song out of it, I think. Yeah,
Let's-
sometimes it be like that.
Let's keep that phrase.
It's a great phrase.
That's a good one.
That's like Ruthie's "Oh, what a pity."
Yeah.
That's a nice dear.
Those of you that haven't heard, we mentioned Ruthie, and I don't know if you know who she is. A couple of you who are new. That was what she always said to her children, and she has it actually on a little plaque on her patio. What are they too?
That was the answer.
That was her answers of compassion. Say them again. Say them again.
Oh, what a pity. That's nice, dear.
Well, and the way she said it is like if one of her daughters came to her and said, "I'm pregnant," and she says, "Oh, isn't that nice?" And she says, "But I need $5,000." And she goes, "Oh, what a pity."
Yeah, she did say it that way.
Anyone
Sometimes
else?
It's, there's a way of getting into it that's daunting. How do you start the conversation, right? And I was having some issues with, not issues with my family, but between two other family members. And I just said to my son, who's caught in the middle of it, I said, is what's going on causing you suffering? And I just joked him and says, yes. And first he had to realize he was suffering. So
Have compassion for his suffering.
to think about where the answer is. And
That's a great question.
I keep thinking this, with this whole conversation going around, I keep having this thought where I feel as though suffering and compassion are indelibly linked to one another. And if you have suffered, which we all have all through our lives, I believe that it creates deeper compassion. Because when you feel how whatever might have happened to you that made you suffer, when you feel that directly, when somebody else is suffering, you now know exactly how they're feeling. And so it's easier to understand what that person might be going through, and therefore you're delivering compassion just by simply understanding maybe the pain that your friend or whoever it may be is going through at the time, without really even saying anything, but just being there and absorbing some of that pain for yourself.
Often if people are going to come to you for help, it's because they see that you have an answer to a question they don't know how to ask. You know, I don't know how you are able to live, but you look like you've gotten through a similar problem than I have. How'd you do it? Right? And that's where the compassion comes in, that understanding that you're talking about. Are we good to go with our meta? Anybody else?
One thing on compassion, someone, a wise person, once said something to me and it didn't resonate at the time, but it was like having a boundary can be the most compassionate thing that you can do. And I think I've sort of struggled with that, sort of a people pleaser type of mentality for my life, and it didn't kind of equate. It seemed like compassion's like being nice to someone,
Right.
and that can be like giving too much, right? I resonated with your example. It sounded like you had a boundary with your daughter. You were not going to go to this particular place and enable her, and doing that,
Mm-hmm.
you were being compassionate. You're doing the most compassionate thing you could do in that moment.
And to yourself
Absolutely.
at that time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to yourself.
Compassion does sometimes include the word no.
Right.
Not always, so it's not always a yes.
Yes. Very true.
Perfect. Loving kindness is raining down on us.
Truly.
Showering down on us.
You want to do it?
I can, unless somebody else would like to do loving kindness meditation. Okay, I'll do my version. All right, get yourself centered again. Think some gratitude for being here today, for being able to delve into the topic of compassion. And so we're going to choose 5 people or sets of people, starting with you. So say these things quietly to yourself. I wish you well and health. I wish you peace on the inside and on the outside. I wish you happiness and love. I wish you honesty and integrity. That compassion that you give to yourself then leads you to the next person, someone you love, someone who you have deep feelings for you and they probably do back. And to that person, bring them to mind and wish them these 8 things. I wish you well and health. I wish you peace inside and outside. I wish you honesty and integrity. I wish you happiness and love. Loving kindness next takes us to someone that you don't know very well, a neutral person. A neighbor, someone you see every day but are not that well acquainted with. Someone who you've maybe created some distance with. To this neutral person, the same 8 wishes. I wish you well and health. I wish you peace on the inside and the outside. I wish you honesty and integrity. I wish you happiness. Love. So now we come to that difficult person, bringing them to mind, someone who we suffer with, or they suffer with us, or both. It could be long-lived suffering, long-lived difficulty, or short. Could have happened just this morning. To that difficult person, I wish you well and health. I wish you peace inside and out. wish you honesty and integrity. I wish you happiness and love. Finally, we go to a much broader scope beyond individual people and ourselves. We go to all people everywhere. The masses of humanity on this planet and other places. All things living. To those we say, I wish you all well and health. I wish this broad spectrum peace inside and peace outside of you. I wish you honesty and integrity. I wish you all happiness and love. Let this unconditional energy be your loving kindness in this moment and when we go from here. Take a couple of breaths. Clear the air. You've done good work by sending that love out from you and to you and all around. When you're ready, open your eyes. It was beautiful that the rain happened during that, wasn't it? It helped, just like the bowls helped with the early meditation. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. So we usually end with this up here. It's it's a Ruthie benediction. And she stole it from some Episcopalians or something. Unitarians? Okay, whatever. From some other group. So, let's... and they stole it from somebody else. So, let's say this together. Go in peace. Go making peace. Living gently. Loving mightily. Bowing to mysteries. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.